Ackee. Ackee holds the proud distinction of being the national fruit of Jamaica, deeply woven into the island's food culture and culinary identity. Cooked correctly, it forms the backbone of one of Jamaica's most beloved traditional dishes. However, beneath its cultural significance lies a hidden and genuinely serious danger that has claimed lives over many generations. The problem centers entirely on timing and ripeness. When the fruit has not yet fully matured, it contains toxic compounds known as hyperglycins, which interfere with the body's fundamental ability to regulate blood sugar levels. Consuming ackee before it is ready can trigger a condition known as Jamaican vomiting sickness, a severe and potentially fatal illness characterized by relentless vomiting, seizures, and in the worst cases, death. The fruit is considered safe to eat only once it has ripened completely and the outer red pod has split open naturally of its own accord. Even at that stage, the danger is not entirely gone. The black seeds embedded within the fruit and the pink membrane lining the interior remain toxic regardless of ripeness and must be carefully removed and discarded before the flesh is prepared. It is a fruit that demands respect, knowledge, and precision, qualities that visitors unfamiliar with its particular rules do not always bring to the table. Manchineel. The manchineel tree has earned what is arguably the most alarming reputation in the entire plant kingdom, having been formally described by multiple sources as the most dangerous tree in the world. It grows along beaches and coastal areas throughout Florida, the Caribbean, and Central America, and the fruit it produces is a deeply deceptive thing, small, green, and smooth, bearing a striking resemblance to a miniature apple. Spanish explorers, apparently struck by its innocent appearance and horrifying effects, named it Manzanilla de la Muerte, which translates directly as Little Apple of Death. The deception does not end with its appearance. Biting into the fruit triggers an almost immediate burning and blistering sensation throughout the mouth and throat as the powerful toxins make contact with soft tissue. The destruction of the manchineel extends beyond its fruit. Simply standing beneath the tree during rainfall is enough to cause painful skin irritation, as the toxic compounds leach into rainwater dripping from the leaves. The milky sap that runs through the tree causes chemical burns on contact. Most animals appear to instinctively recognize and avoid the manchineel entirely. Human beings, unfortunately, have not always exercised the same caution in time to avoid suffering the consequences. Elderberry. Elderberry occupies an interesting middle ground among the entries on this list. It is genuinely useful, widely consumed in processed forms, and deeply embedded in the folk medicine traditions of both Europe and North America. Elderberry syrup, jam, and wine have been prepared and enjoyed for centuries, and the plant's medicinal reputation has only grown in recent decades. The danger, however, is very real and emerges specifically when the berries are consumed raw rather than cooked. Raw elderberries, along with the leaves, bark, and root system of the plant, contain cyanogenic glycosides, chemical compounds that the human body breaks down into small amounts of hydrogen cyanide during digestion. The resulting effects range from nausea and vomiting at lower doses to more serious systemic harm when larger quantities are consumed. The saving grace of elderberries is that heat neutralizes these compounds effectively and reliably. The cooking process breaks down the cyanogenic glycosides, rendering the berries safe for consumption and explaining why preparations like elderberry syrup have maintained their popularity across generations without causing widespread harm. Rosary pea. The rosary pea is, by almost any measure, one of the most visually striking small objects found in the natural world. The seeds are a vivid, polished red and black, smooth, hard, and perfectly formed in a way that makes them look almost like something manufactured rather than grown. This striking appearance has made them popular across many cultures as decorative beads for jewelry and religious objects. Unfortunately, this same beauty conceals one of the most potent biological poisons known to science, a protein called abrin. Abrin operates at the cellular level, systematically dismantling the machinery that allows cells to produce the proteins necessary for their own survival. Once it enters cells in sufficient quantity, it sets off a process of irreversible damage that no current medical treatment can fully reverse. The shell of an intact rosary pea seed is hard enough that swallowing one whole often results in it passing through the digestive system without causing harm. The body simply cannot break down the outer coating. However, even the most minor crack in that shell is enough to allow a lethal dose to enter the system. This fact led to a series of documented deaths among craftspeople who threaded these seeds into jewelry and accidentally pricked their fingers with needles that pierced the shell, allowing trace amounts of the poison to enter through the skin. Bitter almonds. The almonds available in every grocery store and snack aisle belong to the sweet variety, selectively cultivated over many generations to be entirely safe for human consumption. Bitter almonds are a genetically distinct type and an entirely different proposition. They contain amygdalin, a naturally occurring compound that the human body converts into hydrogen cyanide during the digestive process. The quantity of bitter almonds required to cause serious poisoning in an adult is relatively modest, and the threshold for a child is lower still. For much of history, the meaningful distinction between sweet and bitter almonds was poorly understood, and bitter almonds were occasionally used in small quantities as a flavoring ingredient in food and confectionery. Most countries have since moved to either heavily restrict or outright ban the sale of raw bitter almonds to the public. The almond extract commonly used in baking today is either derived from entirely different source materials or produced from bitter almonds that have undergone specific processing designed to eliminate the dangerous compound before the product reaches consumers. Strychnine tree. The strychnine tree presents one of nature's most effective disguises. Its fruit is large and smooth with an orange coloring that makes it look, at first glance, like an ordinary citrus fruit. The sort of thing a traveler might pick from a roadside tree without a moment's concern. The seeds concealed inside, however, contain strychnine, a poison so historically significant that its name became virtually synonymous with the concept of deliberate poisoning across several centuries of literature, crime, and early scientific study. Strychnine attacks the nervous system with extraordinary violence, triggering intense, uncontrollable muscle spasms that spread throughout the entire body. The contractions become progressively more severe, and without prompt medical intervention, the poison eventually paralyzes the muscles responsible for breathing, causing death by asphyxiation. The tree is native to South and Southeast Asia, and its seeds were employed historically as both a rodent poison and, in carefully controlled tiny doses, as a stimulant in traditional medicinal practice. The extreme danger of strychnine and the dramatic nature of its effects made it one of the most intensively studied toxic substances in the early history of scientific toxicology. Sandbox tree. The sandbox tree is notable for being dangerous in an unusually proactive way. It does not simply sit and wait for an unfortunate animal or person to make contact with it. When its seed pods have dried and reached maturity, they detonate with a genuine explosion, launching seeds outward at speeds exceeding 150 miles per hour in all directions, covering distances of up to 60 feet from the point of detonation. The report of the explosion is loud enough to startle any nearby animal or person, which likely contributes to effective seed dispersal. This remarkable mechanism is only one dimension of the sandbox tree's danger. Both the seeds and the pale, milky sap the tree produces are toxic. Indigenous communities across the tree's range historically made practical use of this toxicity, employing the sap to poison water sources and to coat the tips of projectile weapons. The bark of the tree adds one more layer of deterrence, being densely covered in sharp, woody spines. Its widely used common name, the dynamite tree, is a straightforward acknowledgement of its most theatrical characteristic, and it is difficult to argue with the logic of that name once you understand what the tree is actually capable of. Cerbera mangas. Cerbera mangas grows along the coastlines and in the coastal forests of the Indian Ocean and Pacific regions, producing a fruit that looks deceptively tropical and harmless. The seed hidden inside this fruit contains cerberin, a compound that interferes directly with the electrical impulse system that governs the beating of the heart. By disrupting these signals, cerberin can induce cardiac arrest, the complete cessation of the heart's pumping function. The tree carries one of the darkest documented histories of any plant on this list. For centuries on the island of Madagascar, seeds from this fruit were ground into a paste and administered to individuals accused of crimes as a form of judicial ordeal. Survival was interpreted as proof of innocence. Death, which was by far the more common outcome, was taken as confirmation of guilt. Researchers who examined historical records from this period produced estimates suggesting that this practice may have been responsible for several thousand deaths annually during the years it was in operation. In a striking reversal of purpose, contemporary scientists are now studying the active compounds in Cerbera seeds as potential raw material for the development of carefully controlled cardiac medications. Purging nut. The jatropha plant is found growing widely across tropical regions of Africa, Asia, and Latin America, and its seeds bear enough physical resemblance to ordinary beans that accidental ingestion, particularly by children, remains an ongoing public health concern. The seeds contain quercetin, a cytotoxic compound that causes direct damage to tissue, along with additional irritant compounds that assault the gastrointestinal system. Consuming even a modest handful of seeds can produce severe vomiting, persistent diarrhea, and enough physiological stress on the body's major organs to require emergency medical attention. During the early years of the 21st century, jatropha attracted considerable international attention and significant investment capital after researchers proposed that its oil could serve as the foundation for a large-scale biofuel industry. The practical and economic obstacles proved insurmountable, and those ambitions largely dissolved. The plant itself, however, remained as widespread as ever across its native range, and reports of accidental poisonings, the majority involving children who pick up the seeds out of curiosity, continue to emerge from tropical regions to this day. Castor bean. Castor oil is one of the most ubiquitous industrial and cosmetic substances on Earth. It appears in skincare products, industrial lubricants, pharmaceuticals, and countless other applications, and the plant that produces it is cultivated on every inhabited continent. The oil itself is obtained by pressing it from the castor bean seed, and in this form it is entirely safe. What remains after the oil has been extracted, however, is a different matter entirely. The residual seed material contains ricin, a protein toxin so extraordinarily potent that it is formally classified as a potential biological weapon by international security agencies. Ricin operates through a mechanism of cellular destruction that is both thorough and irreversible. It enters individual cells and permanently disables the ribosomal machinery responsible for protein synthesis, essentially switching off the process that keeps cells alive. The resulting cascade of organ failure typically unfolds over the course of several days, and crucially, there is no antidote. A single castor bean seed, if thoroughly chewed before swallowing, contains enough ricin to kill a child. Ricin entered widespread public consciousness after it was linked to high-profile assassination attempts and was discovered in threatening packages sent to political figures in multiple countries. The same plant that supplies a harmless household beauty product is simultaneously the source of one of the most feared poisons ever identified. Doll's eyes. The white baneberry plant inhabits the cool, shaded forest floors of North America, and in late summer and autumn it produces clusters of small white berries that carry a genuinely unsettling appearance. Each berry is marked at its tip by a single dark circular spot, creating an effect that closely resembles the fixed, glassy stare of an eye, specifically the glass eyes set into old porcelain dolls, which is precisely where the plant acquired its common name. Birds are able to consume these berries freely without any ill effect, as they lack the physiological sensitivity to the plant's toxins. In humans, the chemistry is dramatically different. The active compounds in doll's eyes act directly and rapidly on the cardiovascular system, producing dangerously fast and irregular heart rhythms that can compromise cardiac function with very little warning. Even a small quantity of the berries is sufficient to trigger measurable effects on heart function, and children have been poisoned after mistaking the visually arresting plant for something safe to eat. One particularly concerning aspect of doll's eyes is their seasonal persistence. The berries remain attached to the stems well into autumn, long after the majority of other wild fruiting plants have finished, which extends the window of potential accidental exposure considerably. Yellow starfruit. Starfruit is sold in stores and eaten as an everyday food across Southeast Asia and in many other parts of the world. For the overwhelming majority of people who consume it, the experience is entirely pleasant. The fruit has a mild, refreshing flavor and a nutritional profile that raises no concerns. For a specific subset of the population, however, the same fruit can be acutely life-threatening, and the dividing line between perfectly safe and genuinely dangerous has nothing to do with the fruit itself and everything to do with the health of the person eating it. Starfruit contains a neurotoxic compound that healthy, fully functioning kidneys can identify and filter from the bloodstream without any difficulty. In individuals whose kidney function is impaired, whether through chronic kidney disease, acute kidney injury, or dialysis dependence, this filtration process fails, and the toxin accumulates in the body to dangerous levels. The resulting symptoms include profound confusion, hiccups that cannot be controlled, seizures, and in documented cases, death. Medical literature from Brazil and other countries where starfruit is routinely consumed has recorded fatalities among dialysis patients who were never informed of the risk associated with a fruit they had likely eaten without concern for most of their lives. What makes starfruit uniquely thought-provoking among all the fruits on this list is that its danger is entirely person-specific. The identical piece of fruit can be completely harmless for one individual and fatal for the person sitting right beside them.